Yeah, welcome back. SMX Insider, getting toward the end of the 2024 season, starting to talk 2025. We are the Jasons, Weigandt and Thomas. JT, you lived this life for a long time. We hear riders say all the time that the hard work is really put in the offseason. So we're into November now. Is this that time?
It's just starting, right? And with January 11th, Anaheim 1, maybe they have another week or so. But yes, boot camp is on the horizon. All the riders are starting to get back into that mode. You notice Chase Sexton is back. I think he was in Hawaii for a little bit. But yes, it is that time where October was the fun month. November starts the work month. So boot camp time, buckle up.
Yeah, and on this show, we'll talk about that. And also a lot of the riders that are switching teams, silly season news, and anything you might have missed as we start to ramp up ourselves, although not working quite as hard as the riders for the 2025 season. A Monster Energy AMA Supercross, Pro Motocross, and the SMX World Championship. 30-second board, we will be heavy on silly season news as we transition to 2025, and that includes probably the most recent announcement for a team that has triumphed back for year two, only in the 250 class for now. There are rumors they'd race 450s in 2025. That's postponed till 26. But this 250 team, Jalek Swoll returns, and then three new recruits over there, Jordan Smith, Styles Robertson, and Austin Forkner. That is a big move, as he had been with Kawasaki way back since his amateur days. So what do you make of this four-rider lineup, JT?
Well, I thought they overperformed expectation in 2024, and I think that also gave some other riders some confidence to move over to this Triumph team. You know, I think had they struggled, not shown that the bike was competitive, and credit Jalek Swoll for getting those podium performances on that bike. Now riders like Austin Forkner, Jordan Smith, these guys see potential in that team and that motorcycle. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. These are guys that can win races. They're not going to go to a team that wouldn't give them the chance to go out and win again. So I think it's kind of a affirmation for that team is like, hey, this team's good enough to win. Now we're going to bring in some heavy hitters and go chase a championship in 2025. And chasing championships, we know Ricky Carmichael has, 15 of those? And he has a 450 coming. So he got to ride that bike a lap at the Motocross of Nations. And we got a soundbite from him talking about that 450 that he had such a hand in developing.
So it's been a really fun weekend here, and this is a long time coming for sure. You think about this process started back in 2020 to roll out the TF 450 RC Edition Triumph. It's special moment for me, an iconic brand. I mean, this is the home country of Triumph, and to be able to do it and release this bike here at the Motocross of Nations, such an iconic event. It's a lot of fun, very humbling, and I just think about the process and what went into it. I'm very excited with how the bike turned out. I think it's a great balanced bike, and I think it's going to be great in the marketplace. It shows the potential and growth and how big this sport is growing. So just exciting times for sure, and to see all this finally come to real life.
Yeah, that was cool to see him get to do that in person in England. Now, again, the 450 will be out for sale as a 2025 model, but it won't be out in time for the factory team to race it at Anaheim. So that'll be a 2026 thing. Okay, next we'll move over to Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing, the biggest team in the sport in terms of riders, and they're living up to that rep. So they have brought Christian Craig back to the team to race a 450. Justin Cooper, Cooper Webb, and Eli Tomac are also still there. They will have 4 450 riders, which is wild, except they're billing the Craig deal as a bit of a 250 development guy, team coach, and also racing on the side. So sort of a different deal. But to me, JT, this ties into Craig is very tight with Hayden Deegan. I think the team will stop at nothing to help Deegan develop as best as possible. And I think that's part of the reason Craig is there.
It is, and I also think they just want to see how many riders they can possibly add to the roster before somebody has to step in and ask, hey, are you guys serious with this? Because you look at how many 450 guys, how many 250 guys. Now they're adding guys like Manier and Caden Dudney, and it just continues to grow. And you wonder at what point is over half the field going to be Monster Energy Star Racing Yamahas. But kudos to them. They're willing to go above and beyond to try to win championships, to try to win races. And you look at this addition of Christian Craig to try to transition Hayden Deegan from the 250 to the 450. I think a big part of that is to work on his loop speed, which will definitely pay dividends when he jumps to the 450. So it's hard to knock it. The dedication, the commitment to winning across every level is really hard to compete with.
What other name over there? We've talked about this before because we knew it was coming. Pierce Brown now officially part of the team. We've seen photos of videos of him on the Yamaha. Can you have picked a hotter free agent? You know, when he signed with the team, he was getting 5th, 6th, 7th place finishes. When it's announced, he's now coming off the win in the SMX finale in Las Vegas. So good timing there for the squad.
Yeah, when they announced it, I was like, okay, that makes sense. They like to get guys with potential to go win races. And then he made them look like geniuses at the finale in Vegas. So we'll see where that pans out. We'll see what Max Anstey can do in year 2. We saw how red hot he was coming in to the East Coast Championship in 2024. So they have potential of winning across both classes in every series. They have the best 250 Supercross rider in the world, in my opinion, and he'll show that in 2025 in Hayden Deegan. So it's an incredible lineup across the board. And speaking of lineups that are improving, Jorge Prado moves over to Monster Energy Kawasaki in 2025. And we don't have news of that yet, right? We're still kind of waiting, but we know this is coming. We know Prado is going to be officially here for the 2025 season. And I think big things are coming, right? I think Supercross will still be a learning curve. I don't think they're looking at it going, hey, let's go win a championship. I think they're still going to work him in, figure things out, take the next step, maybe look for a podium in 2025. And then when Pro Motocross comes around, they will be all in on chasing a Pro Motocross championship. But make no mistake, Prado's the real deal. I just think it'll be interesting to see his growth curve in Supercross, and can he be 100% effective and ready to go when that gate drops at Fox Raceway in 2025.
Look, this is the biggest 450 season move going into 2025. Prado coming over here. This is the slot that originally was Adam Cianciarulo's. He's retired. So this is a big move for Cowie. This is why I think this is a risk worth taking. I know that the Supercross thing is completely unproven with him, but here's how I look at it. We know honestly that Jet Lawrence is becoming the guy to beat, or already is the guy to beat in the 450 class. And he's already knocked off most of the riders that he'll be racing against. This is a wild card. This is a flyer on how good could Prado be. And motocross is pretty much proven. The idea that he's going to develop so much in Supercross where he's winning this title 2 or 3 years down the line, that's a big bridge. But I just like the mystery of it. We've seen Jet beat everybody else. Maybe not Prado. I think, JT, to me, that alone makes it worth the risk.
It is, and I don't think that in Supercross that will be the storyline. I don't think Jet versus Prado in Supercross is really going to be on the tip of many people's tongues, but in motocross it should. But I will tell you, a rider coming into 2025, that in Supercross it should be the storyline, and it will be the return of Eli Tomac. And I don't mean return to racing. We saw that in 2024. I mean return to form. I mean the return of the guy that we saw in 2022. And you could have said in 2023 that he had the championship in hand until the Achilles injury. That guy, the guy that can go out and beat anybody on the planet, I think he's going to be back at Anaheim in 2025. You look at the progression, how much better he got in SMX, the way he attacked the Motocross of Nations, the way he's riding these off-season races. He's coming in with a ton of momentum. He has the confidence back, which is arguably one of the biggest aspects for riders at this level. I think he's coming in thinking he's going to win this championship again, and whether he does or doesn't, that is going to add a complete new layer to this championship that we simply didn't have in 2024.
Yeah, this is exciting that he's back. He's back for everything, all of SMX, Supercross, Motocross, and the playoffs and World Championship. The fans are certainly going to like it, but this is not going to be a joyride just to soak up the cheers. I don't know if he's the favorite coming in, but I think he's certainly at a higher level than he was coming into 2024. SMX Medical update time. We bring back Dr. Joe McGinley of the McGinley Clinic, but this is cool. We're actually taking fan questions. We asked you folks on social media some questions for the doctor to get answered. I think this might be a Hayden Deegan fan, really living vicariously through his favorite rider. The question is, should I get plates and screws removed from my wrist? Dr. McGinley, what do you think?
First of all, we had a bunch of great questions. We narrowed it down to some of the most relevant, and it was just fun to see what the fans were interested in. This obviously is timely with Deegan's surgery this past off season. So as far as hardware, if you've had an injury and you've had hardware placed, you don't necessarily need to get it out. So a lot of people think because there's metal in there that it has to come out. That's not true. These are inert materials. They can stay in your whole life. However, the main thing on getting it out is it bothering you or not? So if you're having symptoms from the hardware, that usually means that there's rubbing with the soft tissues, either the tendons or the muscles. That's definitely time to have that considered as far as removal. Some of the things that can happen, the surgical screws can be too long. So these are screws just like you would see at your hardware store, a different material, but they sort of look the same. So when you put some of these screws in, sometimes the tips will stick out on the far end. And if you have a pointed screw tip and you're moving, if you can imagine if you had a wrist screw and one of those screws are too long and you're moving your wrist, that's going to rub and irritate all the tissue. So in that situation, it needs to come out. Otherwise, it's going to cause further damage. I think in Hayden's one of his posts, he mentioned he had a torn ligament inside the wrist, possibly from that screw. So that would make sense to get that out. But other times, it could be just the hardware itself. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a long screw. It could be the surface of the screw, the head of the screw. It could be the plate. And just the normal rubbing of the tissue over that material can get irritated over time. So if it's bugging you, it's usually best to see your doc, see if it needs to come out, see if you can get that taken care of. One of the products we worked on over the years was to prevent this. Our IntelliSense drill senses as it's drilling, so it'll automatically stop before that screw placement can be too long in the bone. So we thought of this problem earlier and said, is there a way to prevent it? And the answer to that question is yes. But if it's bugging you, get it out. Otherwise, just leave it alone, because there's no such thing as a perfect surgery, and things can go wrong even in the most routine of surgeries.
So Dr. Joe, injuries are prevalent in our sport. You know that all too well. I think for most riders, they're willing to accept that, but if they can minimize them as much as possible, that's the goal. So from your perspective, what would you say are some of the best ways to help avoid injury throughout the season?
Well, we're in the off season now, so this is the time you prepare for the upcoming season. So first and foremost, if you've had any nagging injuries that have been sort of dragging on through the season, get them taken care of. You have the downtime, you have time to rest, get it taken care of now. Second thing, a lot of riders don't think about is planning for the upcoming year, setting your goals, listing the races that you are undoubtedly want to go to and compete at, and then sort of work backwards from there. So once you have that schedule, say, what are my priorities and how do I get to those goals? If your goal is to get to Anaheim 1, you got to be on it, right? You need to be training now and getting ready to go. Whereas if you say, hey, I'm looking for this race in June, you have a little bit more time to prepare. So you want to take that time to prepare and then come up with a program that's going to work best for you. There's all levels of riders, whether you're just recreational rider, novice rider, or top pro. You're going to have different plans and programs. One of the biggest things, though, is getting a health team together for you that works for you and works best in your program. So having a riding coach, having a trainer, having a nutrition coach. And then the one thing a lot of riders will forget about are sports psychologists. I've seen it a lot with riders, especially at the end of the year. Not only are they physically fatigued, but they're mentally fatigued. A lot of these kids, they're traveling every week. They're not sleeping at home. They're sleeping in hotels. They're sleeping in RVs. That wears on you over the riding season. So this time of year, you want to rest. You want to make sure you heal up, but then plan that program for next year. And don't forget the mental aspect of it. If you're mentally prepared, you're more likely to be physically prepared coming up into the season and getting things taken care of. So now's the time to do it. Plan for success and then enjoy the race season. Take care of everything now.
All right, Dr. Joe, thanks for the update. We'll catch up with you again as the offseason rolls on.
Thank you. Great questions. Love it.
And now we resume our 30 board. News came out that the Troy Lee Designs Red Bull Gas team is now going to be known as Rockstar Gas Factory Racing in 2025. It's actually a bigger deal behind the scenes than it looks. It's not just different logos on the bike. The Troy Lee Designs part of the race operation is out. A lot of rumors that they might become the Ducati race team in the future, but that's still a year or two off. Gas is going to be run now exactly like the Rockstar Husqvarna team, not just from the sponsorship standpoint, but they're basically sister operations working out of the KTM Husqvarna Gas race shop in California. And a little bit of shuffling with the riders as well, but on the racetrack, it won't seem that different. See Justin Barcia still in a Gas, but now it's Rockstar. And behind the scenes, JT, there was a lot of shuffling here.
Yeah, and if you're confused trying to figure this all out, don't feel bad. I think we all were. I read the press release about 5 times trying to sort out, okay, so Casey Cochran is moving over to a gas, but still Rockstar, switching trucks, but kind of the same Austria group, right? RJ Hampshire is going to ride the 250 in Supercross, move up to a 450, which I believe will kind of mark the end of the 250 program for Husky. So there's a lot of moving parts, same kind of teams, but moving around sponsors. I think after a couple of races, it's all going to make sense. But yes, to the point of the 30 board, it is a shuffle as, you know, the KTM, Gas, Husqvarna programs all kind of merge and kind of find their new pathway forward. In the end, everybody's still going to be racing. Sponsors will move around, but the colors and the brand loyalties may shift a little bit.
Yeah, and what this has allowed them to do is anyone who is still under contract going into 2025 stays there. Hampshire, Barsha, Malcolm Stewart has another year in his deal, et cetera, et cetera. They all stay on the bike brands that they were supposed to ride for, even if the behind-the-scenes part of the team and the sponsorship has changed. And that leads us into a much longer list, JT, of riders who are staying put, because we're in that in-between. Most of the top 450 riders signed 2-year deals. We're into the second years of those. There will be a massive free agent class at the end of 25 for 26. But let's highlight some of the riders who are back. That's Cooper Webb on Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing. Chase Sexton, we mentioned Stewart and Barsha. So that's something to watch. Jason Anderson as well. The riders who are staying, but maybe year 2 gets better for some of these guys compared to their first year 1, like Webb and Sexton?
I think so, but I'm already kind of looking into 2025. And yes, a lot of these riders are staying put. But when you start to think about when conversations happen for 2026, we're not that far away. In the early Supercrosses of 2025, riders that you mentioned, Sexton's, what does Hayden Deegan do for 2026? Does he move to the 450 and where? Does Jason Anderson stay at Monster Energy Kawasaki after 2025? So yes, it's stable right now, but that stability will immediately start fading as 2025 season kicks off and everybody starts thinking about 2026.
Now, something else that has taken place recently, we were all busy over at Motocross of Nations in England, but we had previewed it. We had the great Kevin Windham on this show when he was nominated for the AMA Hall of Fame. He got in, he got his induction ceremony. I think that makes a lot of us proud. As I always say, JT, this AMA Hall of Fame is not just athletes from the sport we cover, it's from all aspects of motorcycling, not even just racing. So always great when someone that we looked up to gets in.
Yeah, I think he or Damon Bradshaw have to be considered 2 of the best riders that never won a Premier Class championship. And the amount of winning they did, the talent they had, the longevity of staying near the top of the sport for as long as they did, never crossing that line and getting that championship. In the end, it's a little bit sad because of how good they were. They just never accomplished that. But man, the question of whether or not Kevin Windham should be in the Hall of Fame for me is a no-brainer. And I was really, really happy to see him as a person and him as a rider both get to don that.
All right, so a lot of great things did happen in 2024. If you're looking toward 2025, though, all 28 regular season rounds, Supercross, Motocross, have been announced, the locations, the dates, the venues. There's a lot of excitement there. Here's what you have to look forward to.
And for that Monster Energy Supercross season, all of the track maps are up on supermotocross.com. Let's take a look at a few of them. Let's start off with Anaheim 1. Now, this is one of the busiest layouts I've seen in a very long time. You can just see how many jumps, how many switchbacks are going on there. Now, that's going to make the start critically important because when you have that much busyness and that many switchbacks, it's going to be really difficult to pass. Add to that, you have a split start. So all those riders on the outside, they've got a really tough task because they've got a split lane there that's going to make a longer distance to get to that tight left corner. So starts are going to be critically important, which means your qualifying time, your heat race, all those things can snowball for you. And you want to make sure that you get on the right side of that equation so you get the inside gate, good starts, because that's going to show up later in the main event. Now let's jump to A2. You also have a split start here as well, but you notice the track is a little bit more spread out. So they're gonna have a little bit more room. The track's gonna be a little bit faster. Now the difference here though is the start, it is a split start, but I think the outside may have a little bit better chance just because they can carry all that speed and maybe sweep in from the outside. Now we're gonna have to see how that all plays out, but those two split starts are really, really important as far as what the results can look like. And I think qualifying throughout the day will be more important at those first two rounds than maybe some of the others. Now let's jump a little bit deeper into the season. Let's go to Pittsburgh. And this is one of the most traditional Supercross layouts that I've seen in a very long time. And that means long rhythm sections. You're on a football stadium, so you have just that kind of rectangle type shape, which allows really long rhythm sections. And basically you're coming out of a corner 180 all the way to the end of the stadium, turn around and do it again, back and forth. And that's going to create passing lanes. Riders can get alongside, make a move, and then make a block pass if needed in that next corner. So this is when you think about the old school type Supercross tracks you go back 20, 30 years ago and watch highlights of, Pittsburgh reminds me a lot of that. The final one we'll look at is East Rutherford, New Jersey. And what I want to show you here is the back-to-back loop sections. And not only that, you've got 4 180-degree turns in succession coupled with those back-to-back loops. That's going to set up an incredible opportunity for block passing. Not only that, the loops, you can get alongside, you can make a move, you can execute the final part of the pass in the corner. But when you look at some of these tracks and you're like, where am I going to pass? You're really trying to plan it out. This track's almost setting it up for you with so many 180s and back-to-back loop sections that allow you to get alongside. So a lot of variation, a lot of difference, really tight. So, an A1, the really open, long rhythm sections of Pittsburgh, 2025 is going to give you a little bit of everything.
SMX Facts time. Let's get the whole gang back together and bring our statistician Clinton Fowler back on the show. Good to chat with you here. We're going to take one last look back at 2024. Give me some things that stand out from the season.
Absolutely, Weege. Incredible season in 2024. In particular, a ton of firsts in the year. You've got to start with Jet Lawrence coming out as a rookie in his first Supercross ever, winning Anaheim 1. Quite the achievement. Thing we're not going to forget about for sure. Obviously, a quick nod to Ken Roxon in 2014, and Josh Grant in 2009. They won their first race in the rookie season, but they had raced the Premier Class Supercross prior to that. So that was incredible. We also had 3 champions, Jet Lawrence, RJ Hampshire, and Tom Bial, first-time champions, and the first time they had ever led a series. So they were first-time red plate holders, absolutely incredible. There's 3 other first-time red plate holders, Aaron Plessinger, Levi Kitchen, Max Anstey. Those guys all signal that they're going to be great competition this year. And the last one, JT, that I've got to call out is Vial obviously won the championship, but he got his first victory in Supercross. And of course, Hayden Deegan, the much talked about, he got his first victory in Supercross. And given the championship in the outdoors, given the repeat as a SuperMotocross champion, we've got to be looking at him as we move into 2025 as one of the favorites.
Yeah, I think so. And really looking back, it's hard to believe that Tom Bial went out and beat Hayden Deegan for that East Coast Championship, but he did, right? So I think Hayden Deegan has taken steps forward. I think he's really improved himself across the board, but the ask is going to be the same. He's got to go out and win that first 250 Supercross Championship, and it sounds like he may have end up on the West Coast, so we'll see who he ends up racing against. But to your point, Vial went out and won the race, and he went out and won the championship, and Deegan's got to go out and kind of set that record straight. It may be his last opportunity before he moves up to the 450 class.
There'll be many numbers to crunch as we get closer to Anaheim, but give us something to look forward to here as we start bench racing for the upcoming season.
Absolutely, Weege. 2025, for the first time in the history of Supercross, we're going to have 5 Premier Class champions sitting on the line. Never happened before. Absolutely incredible to think about in the 50-plus years of racing Supercross that we've never had that many. We always talk about the fact that there's going to be a deep field. We talk about the champions that they've had in a 250 class. But we've now literally got 5 guys that have won the Premier Class title. A quarter of the gate is going to be ex-champions. So absolutely incredible to think about it. We got Jet Lawrence last year. Chase Sexton won in 2023. You got Eli Tomac and Cooper Webb. They're both 2-time champions. And you can't forget about Jason Anderson on the Kawasaki, who in 2018 won the championship. So 5 guys. And for reference here, JT, historically, there's 2.1 champions on the gate over the history of the sport. It's been a little bit more competitive in the last decade with 2.6 champions. So 5 riders on the gate that have won a title, absolutely incredible. What do you think for these guys? Is somebody else new going to get in the mix, or is it going to be one of those 5 guys as we look towards 2025, JT?
Yeah, I do think one of the champions for 2025 comes out of that list of the 5, right? When you look at the talent there, the consistency, the ability, it's hard to imagine it doesn't, right? Could Ken Roxon do it? Could Hunter Lawrence step up and do it? Sure, it's theoretically possible, but when you look at Jet Lawrence really coming into his prime, look at Eli Tomac truly back to form, and you guys have guys like Sexton going into his 2nd year on the Red Bull KTM. Surely he'll find some more comfort there. Jason Anderson, he's a wild card. You never really know what you're going to get. And I think Cooper Webb's going to be back to that same guy that he was in 2024, fighting for wins each and every week and putting in consistent results that'll have him a factor late in the season. It's really hard for me to see a scenario where it's not one of them fighting for this championship. And the best part of that, we have guys entering their prime. We have guys in their quote unquote last season, like Eli Tomac, who's still relevant. He's still able to go out and win. We don't get situations and setups like this very often when you look back over the history of the sport. To your point, Clinton, we've never had 5 ex-champions going into a season. And I would even argue it's even more rare to have them all at this level, right? Where they're all super competitive and we're all talking about them winning in 2025. It's an all-time setup. And yeah, if you needed one reason to get excited for next year, that's plenty.
I think you did your job here, Clinton. You gave us something to chew over for the next 2 months until we get to Anaheim. So thanks, and we'll get you back for the next show.
Thanks, Weege.
So tickets are on sale for all the regular season races now. Pick those cool new venues. Maybe you're just excited about the passing potential on those tracks, and get your tickets now. And also the SMX Video Pass for international fans will go on sale December 4th. There's going to be some exciting new news and additions for that program that we'll announce a little bit later. Our next show, JT, we're going to Angel Stadium a month early. First week of December, we'll be in Anaheim for what we call media days. We get a lot of behind-the-scenes, one-on-one time with the racers, and we'll be reporting on that for SMX Insider in a couple weeks.
Yeah, those media days are so insightful because we get to hear about boot camp. And really, when you start to think about how 2025 plays out, we always look back in December at those media days and think about the things that those riders said, and you see them start to play out in 2025. Bike changes, fitness changes, all the things, the changes that they made in the offseason. We get a little bit of kind of insider information, if you will, that we get to talk about each weekend in 2025. So it's a great time to come together and really start to set up the 2025 Monster Energy Supercross Championship.
Yep, that'll be our next show a month from now. Yes, remember, we saw Chase Sexton kind of in his debut with KTM clothing on, and he did not go out of his way to say it's amazing and we're so dialed and we're so ready. And you're right, that kind of is the way the season in Supercross played out for him. So we'll have those types of stories the next time we join you for SMX Insider. We'll see you the first week of December. Hope you enjoyed the silly season and off-season update today.